Hello everyone and welcome to the RSS, the Rashid Saleh show with myself, Rashid Saleh, and of course Jason Sim, the coaching act. We had a bit of we'd like to apologize for the last episode because obviously both of us were quite tired from some exertions from that week. So for those of you who commented about how we were looking very sleepy, it's because we were actually quite tired. so disclaimer now. So this episode, obviously we've got the Malaysia Day coming up on the 16th. So by the time you'll be watching this, it will be the 14th of September, the Saturday, for our 13th episode, 30 dozen I usually call it, edition of the RSS. So you actually have a topic that you actually you'd like to discuss with me this time around, because you found an article that you feel as if you probably have something that you want to be talking about.
I mean, I saw a conversation online that I thought would make you mad, so I just thought it's a good thing to bring it up.
Mad?
Yeah, because there was this letter on Dayat Daily. I mean, it was called the Sarawak Government's Call for Return of Sarawakians, a promise or mere political rhetoric, Yeah, so it was this letter that just kind of went viral, and a lot of people commented on it, and like people like James Chin, who is like a political commentator here, the academic. Yeah, so I just thought this is a topic that is a bit close to your heart, I mean, you have gripes with this issue, like returning Sarawakians. Like, what is it like for obviously as Sarawakians with a long working history, and then just coming back here, offering your services, sending out your CVs? Yeah, so tell me, how's it like?
So it's a great start. By saying gripe, I think that's too strong of a word. I'm not being politically correct either. I think gripe is not the because at the beginning when I did come back, and let's look back in terms of the reason why I came back 3 years ago to the month and a half, 3 years and a month and a half. It was because that I felt it wasn't because I was running away from and for people who say that they're stupid, because I could have run away anywhere else apart from coaching. Going back home to Sarawak is not running away. You're going home. For people to say that I was escaping whatever I was going through, that again, I'll be very honest, that wasn't the point. I've always wanted to come back home. I had wanted to come back home in my 30s, and I wanted to come back home in my 40s, especially my early 40s. And when I did, my whole objective was, which is what you've read there, it is transfer knowledge. It was about being able to share the experiences I've had in my industry and other industries that I've been in, and to be able to and because one thing I realized about here, back home in Sarawak, is that we have, and I've mentioned this in all areas, whether it was in sports or in the TV industry or anything, we have a lot of untapped talent. But for us, in order for them to be able to get to a certain level, they need to work on, one, developing this talent, whether you're doing it from foundations, or if the talent is smart enough, you don't have to have that much time to be able to teach them, but you need someone who is experienced to come back to teach them. And who better than people who understand who they are than your own people, correct? So as much as the question you asked and the article that you mentioned, that people want, the Premier or Dr. Sim wants us, Sarawakians want to come back. I don't know whether he wants the ones who've just studied and come back because they don't have experience. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. Just because you went to university and and then you come back to Sarawak, that doesn't make you. Very few do that, who are very one, business minded, and two, have have already set in terms of how they want to do things, yes, successful. Or they already have a family here who are already successful, and they add something value to something that already works.
Oh.
Yes, so that works. But generally, when you want somebody to come back, you need someone who been abroad for X number of years, probably 10 years minimum, and be able to contribute back here. Now, we've had this call before with Talent Corp for Malaysia.
That's Malaysia, yeah.
Okay, and there was this call to come, for Malaysians who were working abroad, being successful, and there were incentives for them to come back, and being told by the government that come back here, you with your family and all that, and be able to contribute to the society. So the businesses, basically the businesses, and grow Malaysia together. What's happened to that? Yeah. So they went through. So it wasn't really a concerted effort in terms of the problems that we've heard with Talent Corp was, some of them did come back, but then they had problems with spouse visa because a lot of them had family, married foreigners. So what happened to foreigners? It affects the talent, because if you're going to bring him or her back, they're going to bring their family back. They're not just people who've just come back single for 10 years and come back alone.
So like bureaucratic issues.
So the bureaucracy was one thing. And then there's this, I call it perceived jealousy. I call it also gatekeeping. It's like, why should they be coming back when I can do the job better?
Was that something you experienced coming
Here?
back here?
No, because I have yet to see, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I've yet to see someone who can do better than me. It's not because I'm being arrogant, but I've had to work hard to get to where I was, and I've seen the stuff that that we've had, the amount of, and I almost say abuse at times, and how people and this is the Western society treat us, and and now I see my own people not understanding that I am, I'm not being, I am here to transfer knowledge. I don't need to be in a position where, I just want to be able to pass honest and goodness.
So just to expand on that, you came in here with your wealth of experience. Did you feel there was a lot of pushback from like locals here, or I don't know, what was it? Because I just to reference that article again, the guy who applied for the jobs here, they were not replied to at all his letters. And then when Professor James Chin commented on it, he's saying like, no, it's like it's because Sarawakians here are hierarchical. They're gonna use the non-performers will use their pettiness to drive you crazy. And then he just to quote him, Sarawakians here will dislike those who can do new things and bring new ideas, and they will employ red tape to suppress talent. I mean, was that your experience, like coming back here, or did you feel there was any of that?
I'm still here. I won't give up. I do feel, and I have seen the younger generation who have gone through have gone through my way of working, and there are some people who said, I'm very firm in what I do, and I admit that I'm very firm in how I do things. It's not abusive, and I'm very well aware of that. But I want them to understand that when we do stuff, and it's not about it's a Gen X thing, it's not. It's just the way the world works. And if you've never worked around the world, you'll never understand it, because it's the world's not the working world. It's not all fun and games. It's not all easy breezy. It's a tough world out there. It's a very much dog eat dog. Even in Kuala Lumpur, it's dog eat dog, let alone you going out in the world. I'm trying to get you prepared for that. And if you have someone who is experienced enough to have gone through it and be able to mentor you, I've had many mentors, and we're willing to help you go through that. Take as much and absorb as much information. However, what I've realized is over the last few years, and especially this past year, is there's this fear of, and most of this is unfounded because they've never worked with me. So how can you be scared of me when you've never worked with me? And you listen to other people, and it is probably other people say things about me, and they've never worked with me. I think that's unfair. And a lot of it is that. So, and people who know me, I'm like, don't play politics with me because, we know this happens, and not just here in this country, but all across in Malaysia and across the world. And the more we do this, and the more we have this fear, we're never going to strive forward.
So just to ascertain from what you were saying, do you feel there's this pushback towards returning Sarawakians that brings maybe a different, maybe slightly more aggressive work culture than what they're used to? Do you think that's partly because of this perceived pushback?
It's not a perceived pushback. It's more about gatekeeping. I think because right now, if you look at our own population in terms of Sarawak, there's 3 million in a territory that's as wide as the Peninsula Malaysia. Yeah. That's not a lot. In KL itself, in the Klang Valley itself, there's 9 million people living in a confined space, and right now the opportunities are big. And there's always this saying in when it comes to Sarawak, it's like when it comes to the companies, they're only duopolies or three or four main companies that control the whole of Sarawak. It sounds political, but that's the way it is. It is in history. It's always been like that. You will always have those who've been in there early will take control of the territory, and it happens. It's not the royalty does that. However, we are now in an era where we have the internet, we have information at our, beck and call. So the younger generation have picked this up very fast. I love working with younger generation, because they have ideas that are way beyond what we can imagine, because they don't have the hang-ups of what we do. They've grown up in the era where, we created the internet. They're using it, they're utilizing it to the max, because they don't have to worry about, we made this. But a lot of our generation still, but we made this. We should know what we're doing. Sorry, TikTok was way ahead of everyone. So when I teach them, the acceptance level is so much better, and I've got guys who are now even younger millennials. I'm not saying older millennials, and some of them have picked up so fast that I'm so amazed at their progress. I've got guys who are now have learned the basics from me, and I've given them just basics, and they still come back to me for help, but there's not enough of them around to. I don't know what we're an aging nation in terms of Sarawak. So
you feel like you're finding more issues with the boomers, the older generation.
I guess because they've always been there, and the boomers now, they're the younger boomers. I mean, the older boomers have pretty much I wouldn't say wiped out, but they're much older. I mean, my father is in 84 right now. He's not even a boomer. He's the lost generation. He's the 1940s. They're way before the boomers, and they're called the lost generation.
The World War II.
Yeah. But he was very progressive when he was around, and I'd like to think I want to say I'm like my father. I'm far well removed from where he was, because they came from a very unique era. They built Sarawak, and we can't claim that. For us, it's to improve of what they've started, and that's our responsibility as citizens of Sarawak, let alone being citizens of Malaysia. So for me now at this age, in the second part of my life, if you look at it that way, I'm way beyond that already, is for me to be able to contribute back, and I wouldn't say leave a legacy, but to be able to say, before I die, I don't want to keep all this in.
Yeah. So, like, just going back to that article, like, do you agree that, maybe not as welcome as, we obviously hear, like, people like Dr. Sim, they're always on the news telling, like, Sarawakians, please come back, please come home.
My question is, why do you keep harping on about that? What is the problem? I need to ask him, why are you asking us to come back? What made you ask that question? So we may be able to find the answer from him, because I would ask him, so why do you keep asking us? Is there a problem? Because we seem to see it, but why don't you see it? Or is there an issue? The fact that you're asking us to come back. Do you see something, you foresee something happening? So if we do come back, what happens then? You see, for us, this is not about being bitter or being better or being more arrogant or more. Yes, I am, as I mentioned before. Yes, of course we're a lot more experienced because we've gone through it. We know what we're doing, and we're trusted by people outside, and we have people outside saying that we can do the job. Is that not enough evidence to tell you that we can do the job? If we can't do the job and people are saying bad things about us, then I wouldn't be here. Being confident, knowing that I know my job. That's not arrogance. That's pure confidence, knowing that I can do the job. I don't want to take over somebody else's job, but please use my experience so that we can be better as a whole, as I almost said a nation, as a territory, as Sarawak, because that's why we want to contribute. And that's why the article of the guy saying that, it's because they don't recognize him, or maybe it's just ignorance because they don't know. What is it? But you need to tell us. But being quiet about it, we can't help you because we're asking the questions. We're asking, in which area do you need help? Or are you saying, we know what we're doing, so we don't need you? But we can see on evidence that it's not happening.
So from your personal experience, have you felt this kind of pushback, hostility, or...
It's not hostility or pushback. I still do believe that it's just lack of information, lack of knowledge about us.
Well,
because at the end of the day, if you want to really get, it's like, going interview, you need your references, right? I'll give you my references. But if you don't choose to ask for the references, or you don't want to, and you just have in your mind that, oh, he's no good, or he's too arrogant, or he's too hard to work with, that's not my fault, that's yours.
What about this idea that, the people who are entrenched in these positions, like you said, gatekeeping?
That's a government thing, isn't it? It's all around the world.
Yeah.
The only way to do it is to, I suppose I would say, unwire it.
Yeah.
Go in there and just fix it. But are we the people to be doing that? It needs to come from the top. If the top sees that it's okay, then we can't do anything. But I can guarantee in the long run, it will not bode well for us. And I'm not being negative, I'm being realistic. Because history has shown that this happened in the past. I'm an avid reader of history, because we know that we can learn from the past what we can do for the future. If we don't learn from the past, we will continue repeating our mistakes. And you've got to be able to understand that. So if you're going to stay entrenched, then we know the outcome. We're going to have half-baked stuff, and they're not going to be around. So who suffers? Our generation. We get the blame for it. But I'm also saying that, do you want to leave a legacy? Then do a good job. But I can't tell you to do a good job because the powers be are in charge. And the moment that you stop, of course we say you've got to take care of yourself. But at the same time, as a leader, and I know the Premier knows this, as a leader, you've got responsibilities.
So what do you think the state could do better to bring back returning Sarawakians who wants to
Well, that's my question for Dr. Sim. You're asking us to come back, but what is it about us that you want to...
So the action must meet the rhetoric.
Yes, so I can't answer that because right now I'm like that guy. I'm like, do you really need us? I'm not angry.
So you answered the call, but then it was there's no one else on the line. There's no reply. Yeah.
Until now, I mean, I always ask myself whether, there was a point early this year when I asked myself whether it was worth coming back, and for me to be able to ask that question was quite, saddening because I don't know what the right word is saddening. It's quite sad because, it doesn't bode well for other people wanting to return. I've had, even on my TikTok, and they're like, we feel you. This is not a new issue. This is not something, revelation. It's not. It's happened. It happens everywhere around the world, but it affects us because this is Sarawak is our country. I mean, my older sister. She would love to come back and serve, and she says serve, not I want to do. It's the same thing with us. We're here to serve because we don't have anything else to prove. If I want something else to prove, I would leave and go back to, I don't know whether I'm going to Timor or another country. I'll go there and go where I'm appreciated, and that's what's happening right now. And there's the saying is go to where you're appreciated. I think I am appreciated in some ways by people here, but am I really appreciated in my own industry? I don't know. I mean, at the moment it's no. I'll be honest, and it's quite sad because I'm not here to fight the system, and that's how concerning it is. We are, yes, we people, and the other thing people are saying are why are you being so vocal? I'm like, change. The more you fear, the more things will never change. We've got to be vocal because we need people to understand that if we don't tell them, then no one will know. You will always be ignorant in your ways and believe that you are, the best in what you do. But what in that small pond that you are, do you want? My question is to the rest of our strikers. Do you not want to strive to be better, or are we comfortable? It's like that thing. Every gawai, at the coffee shops have trouble getting staff because they've all gone back.
Yeah.
So is that our way of life? That we'll always know we're lacking that drive to want to be better.
I mean, having worked all over the world and been here for a few years, do you have issues with the work culture?
Work culture, it's not issues. I think I've known this for quite a while now. I mean, we are very laid back in our ways. I mean, we used to laugh about it, even in the 90s when living here in Sarawak, it's like certain time, especially after the morning market, it's siesta. And you still get that. I mean, it's not like in Semenanjung where they have their tea breaks and all that, in between breakfast and lunch and breakfast and break and breakfast and whatever. There's always like 4 tea breaks. Here it's like straight siesta, no work. And it's because I think because we were such a sleepy town prior to that. So historically we've always been a sleepy town, and there's not much going on. We have so much land. So I think the attitude hasn't changed. And suddenly when we're pushed to do work, you saw Sukma. You saw how, in terms of how good we can be when we put everyone together to work and to strive to be better. Sukma was a great example. I mean, there was stuff that we'd never seen from us in terms of not just the athletes, but the people who were going behind the scenes. When they were given responsibility, they did well.
We spoke about how laid back the work culture is, but at the same time, there's a big part of why you came back, like that laid back lifestyle, like, from the opposite of how it's like from KL and stuff like that. And I mean, it's something we all enjoy, I mean, clearly you do, right? It's we spoke a bit off camera, but you're saying how it's like stepping on the brake from all the chaos that it was like that. I mean, you can speak about that as well. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't mind elaborating on that.
Yeah.
Part of the reason, I mean, it wasn't a conscious decision. The first decision for me to come back was to obviously transfer the knowledge, share the experience I had, and be able to not just teach, mentor, but be able to have everything I have in terms of in my arsenal to pass that knowledge for our people to be able to take advantage of, and for me in the long run to see these young guys be able to make it in not just in KL and all that. But on the reverse side, I have had a career where it has been so pressurized in many ways over the last 30 over years. Not so much when I was, we talked about me being divorced and all that, but it was a bit slightly slowed down, but it's still intense in terms of my workload. And I never had a time to really relax, even though there were times, my off days, my mind was always worrying, trying to get things done. And when I came home, and I call it home now, people are still asking me, when are you coming back to KL? I said, no, I'm back. I've been able to say I'm back home. And the first year, because we were working on projects and all that, my mind was still on and it was only, I mentioned this, last year in December, when I realized that I felt at home. Not because I felt I belonged somewhere, it was because I had felt so relaxed in terms of when I wasn't working, I was able to really slow down my pace, be able to look at myself, look at my health, look at my mental well-being and fix it. And it was one thing, especially last year, after going through so many things on a personal level, and I realized that I wasn't really fixing myself. I had spent so much time trying to better myself in my work that I neglected my own mental health, my own physical well-being, health, and that was one thing that I realized when I was in Timor. I mentioned Timor-Leste. It's something that was life-changing for me. I've got to write a book on that, man. I mean, it wasn't, people talk about the work I was doing, but on a personal level, it was very similar to what happened here when I came home. Within the second year, I realized halfway through last year, well, actually it was around August, September, October, that I was like, hang on a minute, what about me? I spent so much time trying to fight all these battles and all that, but I neglected my own well-being, my own health. And this past year, and people who know me is like, oh, you've lost weight and all that. No, I'm healthier. I'm healthier physically. I'm healthier mentally. Mentally. So I'm so relaxed. Mentally, I have. Of course, there were incidences in the past that got me thinking and got me, realizing that I'm becoming, I wasn't thinking straight. I was, So, yes. So now you see me. Yes, I of course I still have those kind of emotions when I about issues, but I'm a lot more relaxed in terms of how I look at things now.
So I mean, having described all that, how beneficial it was, like to come back and to have this slower pace of life, and then we spoke earlier about that work culture. How do you reconcile the two? Like to be able to come here and like just breathe a little bit more and relax, not have this like fast furious pace like there was in KL, and then like coming here and then realize that people here are like that, and it kind of it bleeds onto the work culture as well. I mean, not to use like a negative term, but how do you reconcile the two?
What I realized is that when I was, being able to have time and to think about where I was on a personal level, where I was mentally, is that I had to draw on the strength that I had, and the one thing that I have strength in is being able to look at other stuff apart from the work that I've been known for, whether it's television, whether it's sports broadcasting. I am, in that sense, a jack of all trades. And they say master of none, but I mastered quite a few stuff. I think the whole saying, jack of all trades, master of none, but actually extends to, and the whole saying is actually longer than that. I can't remember exactly what it is, but you can look it up on the internet, on Google. So having that time for myself, how do I reconcile it? It's being able to diversify myself into other areas of the industry.
But reconcile as in like, maybe I rephrase the question like are we able to keep that part of what you liked about Sarawak, that nature, like that laid back nature that allowed you to rediscover all these things, and still, can you be aggressive at work and laid back in that other way? Or is it inevitable that as soon as we progress, we're all going to be like super aggressive and super stressed out, like any major city,
I don't think so. Again, finding so funny. I'm talking about the work-life balance.
Yeah,
it's a lot easier to get it done here than in
over there. Yeah.
Over there, because it's always aggressive over there.
Yeah.
You don't have time to think for yourself. I wouldn't say now that how I approach work is aggressive. Oh. I've had a lot of hard lessons in the past few months about how to deal with it. So one thing that we do have is experience. And the lovely thing about experience is being able to handle work and other people now and approach it from a different point of view. Mm-hmm. So it may not work this way. In KL, it's like this way, and you will have to do it that way because that's how it is. Now that, and I have to think back at the experiences I've had when I was in Timor, because we're very similar people. They're a lot more laid back in Timor than here, really laid back. Yeah. So, and they're a lot more territorial than here. So I've had to draw on the lessons I've had there to be able to go, okay, let's try it this way. And there are many ways of skinning a cat. So, so I will probably have to approach it from a different point of view. It may not be more aggressive. It may be a different way. Maybe have to go a slowly approach, but my intentions are still there. I still want to be able to transfer that knowledge. How am I going to do it now? I've got to look at it from a different point of view. So in a way, how do I reconcile it? I'm not going to give up, but this is how I may approach it. Maybe I'll go from a very long different route, but I'm not going to give up.
But do you feel Sarawakians have to change?
Yes, we do. For us to be able to, I'm not asking, and I had this thought last week. My biggest fear is that we start overdeveloping to become a city like KL. We shouldn't. We should always retain our uniqueness. We should retain our, it's very like hippie thing, our greenery and all that. Because that's our strength. We should become maybe an agricultural or biodiversity environment state, because that's what we're good at.
You want us to be New Zealand?
Yeah. Well, we're not like New Zealand, but because
I've lived there, so I just thought it was funny.
It's very very. Like you said, but they're good at rugby, so it's different. They're good at something, and it brings them. And then they're bringing film because of the environment they're in. We want to do the same thing, and I believe that we can. So I don't want to see us having, big tall buildings and all that, because that's not Sarawak. Once that happens, then you become like everyone else. There's no more uniqueness in Kalimantan can build all that, but they build that big Garuda and all that. But that's our administrative capital. That's different. But I don't think the rest of did I say Korea? Kalimantan is going to be like that. And for us to be able to retain that kind of setting is very important to us. So in some ways, yes, that's still going to prolong the laid backness of our state. But I do believe that the younger generation is a lot more clued on included in terms of how they want to progress. And we need to work with them. We need to understand them, and they need to understand us. So we don't want to be like the older generation, where you get told what to do and that's how it's done. It doesn't work with the younger generation. You've got to engage with them, because they don't listen. They're even worse than what we were when we were younger. We were like the hippie go fight. They're like, no, they got logic, because we gave them the tools, the internet, to be able to reason with us. And I got kids who are a lot smarter than me. My own are very smart. They know how to reason with me. We at my age, when we were their age, let's go play water. They're not. They're a lot smarter, because we gave them the tools to be able to learn all this on their own. So the faster that the older generation understands that, and someone like Dr. Sim turning around and said, we want talent to come back. Do you know that you've got talent here, the younger generation? If you just look and understand that they're smart, they can contribute. And it doesn't have to be the ones from experience. And this is why I'm also coming from. It's like, it doesn't have to be us. I learn from the younger generation as well. Because I do believe that I've put them in positions where I can trust that they can do the job. Why wouldn't I? He's Sarawakian. If you can do the job, why not? They will always make mistakes. Everyone will make mistakes. But if you don't give them a chance to make that mistake, they won't learn. If you do nothing, you don't take action, you don't try and make anything and change anything, you will never learn anything. You've got to go and do it. You've got to fear it and go through it and go, doesn't matter, push through it, be able to bite your tongue and go, all right, maybe he's right, I'll learn, because that's how we progress as a nation.
So to the extent that Sarawakians need to change their approach to work, is it not like the opposite? As in, you coming back here, like adjusting to the work culture. To what extent is, how much do we have to change? How much do you have to adjust to the work culture? on one hand, you appreciate the laid backness of Sarawakians, and on the other hand, it's like, I mean, I'm not saying you're lazy, but like you're laid back, right? I mean, yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but yeah. So when I meant like reconcile the two, like, yeah, do you feel there's a point where we can keep both? We can juggle both nature. There's a juxtaposition of both natures in Sarawakians, or there comes a point where when you're developed enough, you're just gonna be, yeah, that island laid back lifestyle is just not gonna be there.
I doubt the island lifestyle is ever going to go away. That's why islanders are the way they are. And if you've lived on different islands, you'll understand that a lot more. And I do be able to live on.
But we're not Singaporeans, though.
That's not an island. That's like a city state. You can't talk them as an island.
I mean, it is technically an island.
There's not even that's like a cove. Yeah. They've got a bridge there. They can escape to. I mean, Singapore. I mean,
Yeah.
Singapore is driven by something else, and they're constant at war. For them, they have this war mentality. It's like South Korea, but without the island. We have now a moment in time where we've never experienced before, which is a premier who is very different in his objectives and the strategy of how Sarawak should go. And as the leader of the state, I mean, so much is being said about Sarawak right now. How we are, ahead of our time, blah, 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 getting things done. My thing with this is we need to keep up with what the narrative is. We need to keep up with what is being told, and that's why the Premier is pushing for it. Now, we now have the Deputy Premier who's saying, bring back the older talents and help us, and he said this, right? He's like, exact words like, help us, build, bring the state up, or something like that, right? Now, you're talking about people with experience. Shouldn't they be leading it? That's where the problem lies, because you've already got people in that position. So where do you put the people in that position now? They've got to listen to people who have just come back and take instructions from the guys who are coming back. I think that's the problem. See, so when we talk about the gatekeeping, it's basically people who are here. So I know the state. I've been there, but the problem is it hasn't changed. We've now got a leader who says change. So the second leader says, come back. Those who have the experience to change it, help us change. So us coming back, we are leaders in our field. Do you not think we should lead? Or do I take instructions from someone and be a mentor or consult? We can do that. But right now, there is no clear instruction for people like me to come back and go, take charge, lead, and then, or consult these guys, make them better than what they are. What is it that you want? Because right now is, no, you can't. We ask you to come back, but no, you can't. So that's my question. It's not about us being able, and there was a point where I was like questioning my own, my own credibility. It's like, am I really, I'm being questioned about my experience. The real question is, where do you want to put us? Where are we supposed to be placed in this system of status quo, when you ask us to come back, and it's the same problem in Malaysia, you're asking us to come back, talent to come back and help out. Where do we help out? At what stage? And are you trusting enough for us to be able to do that?
Yeah,
I think generally big talents or experienced talents, we've handled.
I mean, there was a reason I referenced Singapore before, because it's like, yeah, it's just, cutthroat meritocracy, right? Like, it's like the best in the world come here. Like, if you're just as good for the job, I mean, then you're in charge.
Yeah.
I mean, and even Malaysians, they go there, if they're good enough, they just take over the natives, So like,
yeah, which we did.
Yeah, so I mean, is that the approach we kind of have here? Because the way I look at it is like, yeah, I mean, we can have this kind of laid-back work culture, and we can bring people here. But when we're talking about stuff like our own airline, right? I mean, yeah, I like the best for the job running, like flying a planes and running airlines. It's not a matter of like, training on the job. So I mean, do you feel we should have that kind of approach?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the airline. My older brother has been with Qatar for 19 years. He asked, said, do they need help? And he has also mentioned that there are a lot of Sarawakians out there who've been in the airline business who would love to come back and help out, but they don't know what the sentiments are. Yeah. They're afraid to, because they're comfortable where they are. They're being paid well.
Yeah.
But they don't mind. A lot of them probably don't mind getting a pay cut, but being able to show, because it's about serving the state. It's about serving Sarawak. So the question goes back to the powers that be, the Dr. Simpson go, sir, you ask us to come back, but what role do you want us to be in? Because if you're just come back and then we're part of the workforce and well, then why? We're not making any changes. Yeah. Then we're still under the same people who are going to make the decisions. Or do you want us to be the decision makers and give informed decisions to make sure that things get better? That's the problem that probably a lot of people who want to come back, and that's the question they'll ask. I mean, I was bold enough to come back because I didn't care, because by hook by crook I wanted to come back. I've sacrificed a lot to come here. A lot of people don't realize that. They will sacrifice a lot to come back home, because it's their livelihood as well. I mean, you got to think about that. Imagine after a year they're like, oh, we're not really wanted there, and they can't go back to where they are because they've cut all ties. Who do you blame for that? Them? Probably they have to blame themselves for being stupid. And it's happened before in Semenanjung, in Peninsula. Talent court, we've got people come back and then realize, my God, they're bringing in a different type of work culture that has worked. But then you get this, like you say, you call it the pushback and all that, the gatekeepers, that don't understand that we're trying to make things better for you, not just for us, but for us as a state, as a nation, whatever you want to see it. And the moment you realize that, it's going to be hard. Nothing comes easy. You want to make your money and all that, go ahead. But let us do the job for you. Isn't that what you want? Because you will benefit from it. We'll give you the credit, the applause. Yeah. We'll do it because we love doing what we do. That's why we went across the world, because us getting paid well is a secondary thing. Because you do things well, you will get paid for it. You will be rewarded. That's what we do in school, right? You get your A's, you get rewarded, correct. You get to a better school. Have we forgotten that? Where does it stop? Yes, it is meritocracy. Unfortunately it is. Unfortunately it is. You want to do well? Yes, they'll be paying. But those are the 1%, the elites. Not everyone can get there. Unless they strive to get there. But for the rest, the 99%.
So just to close or ease on better note, like do you feel positive note. Do you feel there's anything that they got right
in Sarawak?
I mean, do you feel that like for a lot of people contemplating to come back, like do you feel are the jobs there, are the opportunities there, are they like they're asking us to come back, but do you feel like there's plenty of reason to come back,
The opportunities are there. Whether we are allowed to utilize those opportunities, that depends on the government.
But do you feel as well, just on a side, do you feel just coming back as an entrepreneur, like on a private sector, because I remember James Chin was, just to reference the article again, he was saying like, forget applying for anything here, but if you want to come back, start your own company. That's the only way forward. Yeah. So, so do you feel that that's like the way forward? Like, you just don't apply for government, or don't apply to like government-linked companies or anything. Just any association with like like appointees.
Welcome to my company.
Yeah.
But we've always said, in any company that you do try and set up, and a lot of them, especially the food companies, and they're doing well. The food business is doing well. But I think it's also a case of a lot of them overextend themselves, and I see quite a few restaurants are closing. And not because of that, because of manpower issues.
Yeah.
And that's another issue that we need to address. But on a corporate side, start your own company. Because remember this, I don't have to rely on the government so much. Not because I'm relying on it to get business. Of course, the business is good with the government, because it's not about being well paid. Because if you get a really good project, you can sustain yourself. But if you want to test yourself, you go corporate, because that's supposed to be your bread and butter. And for people like us who've been in the industry for long enough, we have networks. So we still have work in Semenanjung, we still have work abroad, because we built that network. So that's why we're not so worried in terms of like, will my company sustain? Or do I need to have a government job to be able to? Because we all know in any country, you get a good government contract, you last for a long time, or some even make their money and that's it. They don't have to work anymore. But it doesn't always happen that way. So to be able to do that, you've got to have corporate, you've got to have corporate experience, or look for the corporate clients. Because here, I'm in PR, so they still don't understand how PR works, and I think it's just maturity. So being one of the early birds in, we will benefit in the long run. But you've got to look at it in the long term, and you've got to be able to survive in the long term. So that's where the battle begins, Because in KL, if I start one, I will, obviously lean on the networks I've had in the past, and more often than not, because they've worked with you, they trust you, they will be your clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I've always had this thought that when you come from a place where you never really had like famine or war, like you have a population that like generally they're okay with their lives, right? Like education comes it plays a big part, but also in terms of like inspiring, like okay, what do you want to do for a living, because we're not doing it out of hunger, we're not like a country with like 500 million people, So it comes a lot to like what do people here like really want? What gets them up in the morning? Like do they want to like plant trees, reforest the state? Do they want to do things like that? Yeah. But then when we're bringing industries, like when we're talking about STEM and stuff like that, I mean there's this need for like really hungry people, to run airlines, to make sure like talk about hydrogen and stuff like that, like and I'm saying this as like a non-STEM like stream person. So I mean yeah, there's a lot of work to be done.
There must be a strategic plan,
Yeah.
and I'm sure somebody has that. I mean, somebody must be advising the Premier on the bigger picture. I mean, when you talked about, we're a state and a country that has never gone through famine or war. I was working in a country that went through war. And the way they see things are very different how we see it. And a lot of them are still angry about going through that war. And, we can't be like that. We can't be stuck being comfortable where we are. They're stuck because they can't do much about it because, again, that's a different political issue and a ball game altogether. But yeah, you're right. I mean, my question would be, what's our timeline? Where are our milestones? Because we're going to have STEM and all that. We've talked about it's supposed to be free education. Then we find out it's free education for STEM. But what are the milestones for these people who graduate from STEM to go into the workforce and be relevant because they don't have experience? So in the meantime, how do we plug that gap? And by the time these guys leave, will these guys be able to learn from them, or these guys will have left, and then you create another gap? There are a lot of questions to be asked about that, because it's all well and good to be talking about it, but you've got to take action. And it's all related. I mean, whether it's the TV industry, because somebody's got to talk about it, somebody's got to report it, somebody's got to tell the world that this is what we have. All this media stuff is very important. If you don't think it's connected, then you're sorely uneducated in that area.
Yeah. So on that note?
Yeah, so that was so serious. Oh my God. Okay. Didn't have time to laugh.
Different change from last week.
Yeah, much of a change. But as we lead towards Malaysia Day, these are the issues that we do need to address. And I do feel that as we're getting to, I don't know how old we are in terms of Malaysia. I love my maths.
63. Yeah. No.
From 1963 to now.
Yeah.
Well,
so.
Whatever it is, we are on the cusp of another change for Sarawak, and of course we'd like you to ponder on those thoughts and of what we've discussed on this edition. Of course, again, if you do have any questions, do let us know. Send us an email. I'm sure you have comments, or comment on our social media and our podcast as well. But for now, we're going to go because I think he's still thirsty and tired, and I'd like to finally. We actually shoot this in the evenings at night, so that's why sometimes I get really tired when I'm talking. So on that note, is thank you very much from myself, Rashid Saleh, the RSS, and of course from Jason Sim, the Kuching Knight. This has been the RSS podcast. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.